Hello and thanks for joining me for what's a bit of a different video this week. We're summing up basically my week of absolute hell trying to get to grips with this wet race around Spa. I've never done any Group 3 racing in the rain before, and it's not just a little bit wet, it is pouring in the Belgian mountains here, so it's been a challenging week to say the least, but has been also a good learning experience, and they say if you can learn to be quick in the wet then you'll be very fast in the dry, so hopefully it's been good. If you enjoyed the video, then please do drop a like, it really helps me out, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content. We've got an exciting announcement coming up on Monday, so stay posted for that. But for now, let's get into seeing how this went with my week in the rain. So I started off on Monday trying to set a qualifying time, and there was just so much of this going on. Just spinning, trying to ease the power in, try short shifting here, and as soon as I get into second, try put the power down, too much torque and I spin. Tried using TC for a couple of laps to see maybe everybody was using traction and I wasn't picking up on that, but that wasn't helping either, and started to become obvious that it was probably just the way I was driving the car. So here again, just too keen on the power, thinking I've got a good exit. And probably some of the most frustrating ones of all were where I felt like I was really starting to get to grips with the car. So here we go 4.5 tenths up on, okay, you know, I already got a pretty bad lap sense, so I do need to be up a lot on that time. But here we're carrying some nice speed after sector 1, and just again a tiny bit too much power, and that's all that it took to be spinning off. But eventually, after yet another spin at that corner again there on another lap, we did actually manage to start getting some kind of feel for how I should be driving the car. So come across the line here, you can see on my previous lap, sector 2, I've obviously spent a lot of time in the grass there, 7.5 seconds down, but we do manage to get a good exit and feed the power in sensibly enough. Found you sometimes couldn't even be in full throttle here until you were in third gear, but end up coming across nearly 2 tenths up on our previous best time through sector 1. Gain about half a second nearly through sector 2, and then after a little bit of a moment managed to still keep it together and come across the line for a 2:44.4. So I'm getting a bit more confident with this now, and I feel like it's time to go and try a race out. So it's Monday night, all the big boys are out, and I haven't completely destroyed my DR at this time, so we're going to jump into a lobby here and you can see who is in the race. So as it was Monday night, Digit was on doing his 100k DR challenge. They seem to just be effortlessly flying around the track here. We've also got plenty of other fast drivers around us. Unfortunately, we've got a rather dangerous driver in 8th, a couple of places behind, but we're just going to try and keep it clean. And my goal really was just to finish the race, really. With how much trouble I've been having, just to do 7 laps in a row was going to be a big ask. So here we go for race number 1. One really handy tip that I picked up from Tidgney here was to use the handbrake for the start. So I've just got my finger on a button I had mapped to the handbrake, and then release that, which is a little bit easier than having to hold the brake pedal down. Now coming into the deadly turn 1, everybody's cold tyres. Aforementioned dangerous driver sends the driver who was in 7th flying up the inside, and do drop down a few places, but do you know what, we've made it round T1, and I'm going to be quite happy just to slot in 10th place here and just see if we can ride this race out. At this stage obviously don't know what it's like driving in these conditions with cold tyres, with tyre wear, with slipstream. I've just been time trialling, so really just trying to keep up with the pack here and keep the tyres pointing in the right direction and keeping me going round. So we are going to cut through some of the bits of the race here, because we're going to see that unfortunately things didn't quite go as we would like them to from the offset. So we catch right back up here on the Portuguese driver, and I feel like I'm kind of maintaining pace with these guys and going to be okay to stick with them, and probably planning on just waiting for the natural fallout of people making mistakes and giving up positions. So just trying to stick with this pack here. This is a really tough corner all week. A lot of times where you nearly felt like you were losing the car, obviously going downhill and off camber. But going to cut forward a little bit here as we just sort of tag along with these guys. They didn't pull away, unfortunately, but then here come flying back up the inside. All you have to do is miss your braking marker by literally a couple of meters into that last braking zone, and you go absolutely sailing on past, and unfortunately there, just putting myself under a bit of pressure to stay ahead, get a bit too keen with the throttle, and just like that, we're down to 17th place as Momos comes past us. I persevered for a little bit in this race. There was a big pack still up ahead, and penalties being served there, as you can see. So as we come down for the start of lap 4, see we've still got a decent pack in front, so I figure we're just going to use this as some practice, get used to the tyre wear, and try and catch back up with some of these guys. So going ahead to the further in lap 4, we've gained right up on the Portuguese driver here, and you see there's still all three of them pretty tight together to be able to gain some positions here. Crucial set of corners, these two going onto the back straight. We do manage to navigate that okay. We've got the yellow flag of opportunity showing that somebody's spun in T1, but they obviously managed to keep it together enough, because as we come around here we're going to see that they've managed to get back on the straight and narrow. And now skipping through that lap, we just basically tagged along behind, but once again just a tiny bit too keen. I didn't even feel like I was using hardly any power there whatsoever, but yes, I desperately searched for the TC to get started again, and just like that, in 19th place, sort of down on my own, and carried on with the race, managed to catch back up to that same driver again, but ultimately finished in 19th, so pretty disappointing first race. But saying that, as I was saying, never have done any driving in these conditions before in these cars, so persevered and jumped into another race. Still Monday night here, so there's still a lot of quick drivers out, and just have the same goal here of trying to complete the race, and really just to not spin. I mean, I was really looking forward to hopefully just having a race where I didn't spend any time with my traction control back on trying to turn the car around. So as we get off to a start here, getting a decent launch. I did learn through the week it's actually better to not have full throttle down at the start. You're better off just holding a little bit. We get absolutely sent here though. Smashed straight into the barrier, spun around, and I mean that's just really unlucky. There's nothing I could have done there. Down into 20th place, and unfortunately I did quit that race. That was enough of Monday for me, so this is now Tuesday night. We're jumping into another race. I've got a fresh start, and I'm thinking that hopefully this is going to be a better race here. So again, getting off to safe start here with the traction control. Probably leaving that on a little bit too long, but just concentrating really on the cars around me and trying not to get punted from the rear too aggressively. We make it through here reasonably cleanly, tiny bit of contact on the side there, but managed to get through it and get a half decent launch off the corner as well. So just dangerously coming up alongside Electric here, so luckily he goes ahead to let us all fall into file. And I really don't get a good exit here, but everybody ahead must have been having an even worse time of it, because we come flying up past the Spanish driver here. The South African gets sent off into the barrier, got more drivers off the side as well, and through all of that Electric's had to lift, I think, to just keep it out of the madness, and we go passing through. So going to come here side by side, but the Spanish driver just comes flying across. Now I've had contact there, so I'm okay to cut across that bit, but I rejoined horribly there. I just was desperately trying not to spin the car and did not see all of the cars coming up alongside, so apologies to those guys who had me just basically cut across them. And we're going to come around here just trying to stay in front of Deadeye Delboy, and we just managed to keep enough speed around that corner to stay in front and slot into 10th place. So a little bit of carnage on lap 1, but overall I still haven't made any mistakes, and we are still on track to have a half decent race. So coming around here to the end of lap 1, the pack in front has pulled away from me a little bit, but we've also got a sensible distance between myself and the driver behind. He brakes a lot later than me there and really catches up, but does manage to get through there safely, as we see one driver unfortunately already falling prey to the final chicane. Now, are we going to get a good launch out of T1 here, which is really the key to breaking away and having a good lap. If you don't get a good exit out of here, then you're just going to have the drivers behind you all over, and we do have a bit of a wobble there, but managed to recover okay, and we break the slipstream, importantly, from the German. Now, skipping forward to the end of the front straight. We have managed to catch up with the Russian driver, and you can see there's a bit of fighting going on behind us for 10th place. So don't manage to make the move there to move up into 8th, but there's plenty of action going on ahead here, as we've got the Italian driver there, Real Hollywood, bumping off of Momos' door. And we've got a nice pack here to aim at, so I really just want to try and stick with these guys. And Hollywood was a pretty aggressive driver in terms of, you see here, he just sends it straight up the inside, which we're going to have to deal with ourselves in a moment, but for the minute that has actually gained us 2 opportunities, or 2 positions rather. So we move up into 7th place, and at this point I'm really happy. So I've managed to come through all of the nonsense at the beginning. We're up into 7th place, and as we skip forward here to the end of lap 2, we see that we are still maintaining the gap, and Momos isn't pulling away from us too badly. Hollywood gains up on us here a little bit through the chicane section. I do feel like the R8 was definitely a little bit later on the brakes. You couldn't rotate the car as easily. It felt horrible when I tried to drive it personally. That was just my inability to drive the car, but it really didn't want to turn in. But as we can see here, managed to be a lot later on the brakes. He looks to go around the outside, but he's not going to make it. Looks for the cutback, but we do manage to get the power down well enough that we pull away from him a tiny bit, but he's still going to be well into the slip. So just going to fast forward here through Eau Rouge and see he's well and truly in the slipstream, but he's not going to go for a wild move, which is much appreciated. This section here was so hard all week. Very easy to lose the car at all the points through those corners, to be honest. It's a bit of a nemesis section for me at certain points. But I feel like we're managing the gap here to Hollywood okay. Momos has now started to pull away a little bit from us, and those 2 drivers in front of him have also started to split off, so I really need to get some good exits here, and we just managed to do that through those last couple of corners. You see here we managed to break the slipstream for a moment, although he does then just sneak back inside as soon as he gets the power down. Got to be so gentle on the throttle coming through here, and shifting to 4th but then lifting off. I found if you short shifted but kept the power down, that was a sure recipe to lose the back end round here. So come round for the end of lap 3, nothing's really changed. Gained a little bit up on Momos compared to where we were before. He was about 1.2 seconds and got it down under a second now. Once again we're going to try and get a good launch to pull away from Hollywood here, but as we come down to the front straight we're going to see that he's gained right up on us. I've got a terrible exit up through Eau Rouge, and he's going to be alongside now. I think surely he's not going to go for a move around the outside here. I've squeezed him right to the edge of the track, giving him space, but he does still go for it, and in fairness to him I don't think there was really any contact there. I just panicked a little bit, had too much lock on my steering trying to make sure I didn't turn into him, and yeah, spin off, and all that hard work's now undone. Down into 14th place. I've got dirty tyres. Even with the traction control, I just feed the power in too much, and that was down into last place. And it's as easy as that. Just gone from a solid position in the race, having really done a lot of hard work, down into 20th. I saw the rest of these laps out just to get a little bit of practice and to feel what it was like driving with the tyre wear. But you can see again, I'm all over the place. My head's completely gone at this stage, and we then left it for another day. So this is now Thursday, I believe, when I decided to actually come back and give it another go. I literally had to take a night off. I could not bear it anymore. And we get a good exit there, which means that we're just over 2/10 up through Sector 1. Really nice Sector 2, so I pretty much match what had been my best sector that I've been a long way off all weekend, and then really improve in Sector 3 there, so get down to a 2:44.1. At this point, unfortunately, because of all of the various driver rating issues that I've had through the week, we're in a bit of a lower lobby, but we've still got some really quick drivers. We've got Distinct Mohammed starting at the back, who we're going to see through the race, and a few other A+ drivers. So at this point, it's late in the week, and it would be my dream just to finish a race here and not have spun off and ended up in last place at some point. So we're going to go through this race here and see if we manage to get it done. as I mentioned, it's not best to have full throttle here on the start. I've learned at this stage, so you see just starting with half throttle seems to give you a little bit of a better launch. It means that the TC doesn't have to kick in as much. And do quite quickly though get up to full power, and you see the driver behind me there has absolutely nailed his launch. Gives me a little bit of a bump, but we are through T1 relatively safely. On the outside, a little bit of door to door with Ruben there, and do have to therefore give up the place to Nisman, but slotting into 5th. Haven't spun it on T1 so far with the standards that we're aiming for in this race. That is a success in my book, as we get a horrible exit there unfortunately, and the front pack does drop away, but as we know, anything can happen. There's penalties up ahead, and I'm just going to try and keep my head down and really knuckle down here and try and put in some decent laps. All of the best drivers seem to be doing 244s and 243s in the race, and I wasn't anywhere near that pace, so I'm really aiming to do consistent laps. Probably 246s I guess is what realistically I'm going to be able to do if I'm doing 244s in quali. And yeah, I'm just going to try and keep that consistency. So we see there a bit of a bump sends Ruben wide, and this is the sort of fighting that is going to give us opportunity to catch up. So skip forward a little bit here, as not really much happened in the middle of the rest of this lap 1. Now coming round to crucial pair of corners here for the back straight. Really need to get a good exit, and there's a lot of contact going on there, door to door between Nisman and Ruben, and unfortunately it's only going to end one way. They take each other out, and luckily for me they didn't come back across the track and into my path. So now up into 3rd place and chasing down the Swiss driver who has got a penalty. So just going to try and get into 2nd here really. First is pulling away a bit, but 4 seconds is not unheard of to gain and lose in these conditions. So just making sure that we hit our brake marker for the final chicane, and going to see what we can do here to chase down the all-white NSX in front and get a nice exit there onto this short straight up to T1. Now, Swiss driver serves his penalty. It's still not enough, as you can see, from us to pull in within a second, as he was quite far ahead, but we've at least got something to aim for. We've got a car in front, and I'm just going to keep charging him down, seeing what we can do. He does seem to just be getting slightly better launches than us though, out of the corners here, so he does pull away a little bit. That 1.2 seconds turns into 1.9 towards the end of lap 2. We have got a 1.9 second gap between ourselves and the Italian driver behind, so I'm just going to try and manage that gap and stick with it here. This was also a really tricky corner to judge, I found. You need to use a fair bit of brake, but not too much, otherwise you'll just lock the car up, and getting on the power was just treacherous if you did it at the wrong moment, or when the car was even a little bit too much with the weight loaded on the wrong side. But there, the Swiss driver goes way too deep into the chicane, and we're going to gain right up on him here. Now suddenly we've gone from nearly 2 seconds to 2/10, so it's game on. See what we can do. Now I'm looking up the inside here because I've got a better launch than him, but I don't want to send a crazy move and just take us both out. After the week that I've been having, that is the last thing I need on an opportunity to actually have a decent race here. So we're going to just stick alongside, and again he gets a slightly better launch out of T1. Now following for the first time in quite close slipstream, coming through Eau Rouge, and we go a little bit wide there, so we're not able to get on the power early. You really want to get your right 2 tyres up on that inside curb and then get on the power a lot earlier. But we are still in the slipstream range, and we're going to be able to use that to our advantage to maintain the gap, as the Italian is starting to gain on us behind. So it's gone from 2 seconds to 1.5 here, and I'm going to need to keep an eye on that, because if he catches up and starts getting involved, that's only going to complicate things. Now as we come round my nemesis corner, do manage to get the power down sensibly, but again the Swiss driver just getting a bit of a better launch. I was using 2nd gear quite a bit around here, although all the fast lap times seem to be using 3rd in the NSX, but I definitely found 2nd a little bit more comfortable towards the end of the week. Now we're going to again just slide forward here a little bit. to the crucial pair of corners we keep coming up to. Are we going to be able to get a good launch out of here and pull back away from the Italian driver? Now, the Swiss driver has a big moment, big wobble, and we're going to come flying up on him, which does mean actually this could get quite dangerous, because I just can't overtake around here without sort of, again, risking sending us both off into the Shadow Realm. So I have to unfortunately just lift and stay behind, but it has meant that we've closed the gap right up again, and you really need to make sure that you're on your brake marker here if you're in the slipstream. So really push that as far as I physically could. I think any further and I'd have been sending him off, which is not what we want. And this little bit of concertina has meant that the Italian is down to nearly a second now behind. So skipping forward, I got a really poor exit again coming up over the hill. So the Italian's now right in the slipstream, and the Swiss driver has pulled off to 1.5 seconds ahead. He's just putting in much more consistent laps than I was. You can see I'm doing, you know, low to mid 246s, but he's getting much better launches. I imagine he was doing more like mid to high 245. So I've fallen back into the clutches of 4th place, and it's going to be a question now of whether we can fight him off. Once again, he is in an R8, and they do just seem to be that little bit later on the brakes, so I don't know if it's just the drivers I came up against that were in those cars that were braking a lot later. But here I think I've broken the slipstream for a moment, but he manages to just get enough of an edge to sneak back into it there. And we do get a better launch down the back straight here though, so we are going to pull outside of the slipstream. But braking zone into the last corner is something that you have got to watch out for people on. So we're going to come here up to this very hard braking zone. I nearly completely lose the car, have to lift, and he's going to see that as an opportunity obviously and catch right up on us here. Now this next corner I'm not too happy about. Unfortunately, it's one of those things, it happened. Got to give him the benefit of the doubt, I suppose, that this wasn't intentional, but given that we've got someone gaining on me, I do try and brake as late as I can, so I'm kind of halfway between the wall and the 100 board, and he just comes absolutely flying up, bumps me wide. I mean, fortunately it didn't spin me. I think if I'd have got spun there, I may have not switched the game back on until GT7 came out. I mean, I was at my wit's end at this point with this race this week, so I just figure, do you know what, 4th place is not the end of the world, and I might get an opportunity to take that position back from him. So I'm going to try and stick with the slip here, although you'll see the aforementioned Distinct Mohammed on his R4M account has been cruising through the pack from last place and now up into 5th, and we've got 3 laps here or 2.5 laps to finish. So it's going to be a question of whether we can not lose more than a second a lap to Mohammed, because he is going to be incredibly quick coming up behind, and ideally I want to get in front of this Italian driver and give a bit of a buffer between me and him, so that yeah, we've got that little bit more chance to hang on to a position. And I'm sticking right with him here. Really didn't want to make the move by tapping him back. You know, that's always something that I'm very much not an advocate of. If somebody else wants to bump you off to go past you and they're not going to let you back through, then that's up to them. I don't want to then change my driving because of how they're behaving, but I do feel like maybe he should have lifted at some point and let me through here, given how he did make the pass. But c'est la vie, we carry on, and it definitely felt like I had a bit of pace over him, so we're gaining right up on him here at various different points, and definitely piling the pressure on in the hope that he's going to make a mistake and we're going to be able to go through to take a podium, which would be nice. Now here Mohammed down under the 3-second barrier, down to 2.7 seconds, and a big moment there, nearly almost spinning the car, and that is going to let the Italian pull away and almost get out of the slip, but we just cling on to the edge of it. And I think Mohammed must have had a bit of a moment there as well, because he drops back by a few tenths. But coming up here through the final chicane, we've lost the slipstream and going to need to try and get a good exit to get back into that. If we can get the slip down this front section, then it's going to make such a big difference, but he does unfortunately get a better exit than us, and it's not going to be enough. cutting ahead here to the end of the straight, and Mohammed's down to 1.2 seconds. So I've now got again 1.5, nearly 2 laps to go, and an incredibly quick driver on my tail with less than a second in it. So skipping forward through the race, come to the back straight of lap 6, and Mohammed's down within the slipstream range, and I was just really focusing here on not getting too overzealous on the throttle. So obviously when you've got a lot of pressure on you, it's really easy just to put the power down a little bit too much, and I was managing with that more gentle acceleration to get some decent launches and managed to maintain the gap between us. It's going to be very dangerous till the end here though, and despite the fact that we have managed to get a couple of better launches, we're going to have to still keep our wits about us. So here we go for the final lap of what I was determined was going to be my final race on this track for the week. I've had enough of it. I just want to complete one just to say that I did it, and we're going to see here if we can hang on to 4th place just for a little bit of honour. But it's going to be a tall order, so we're going to need to get a good exit coming here through Eau Rouge. So lift, a little bit of brake, down to 4th, and feed the power in as aggressively as we can. It's not going to be enough though, and definitely should have been shifted up into 5th a little bit earlier there, I think, after having done a couple of qualifying laps since and learned how to drive the air a little bit better. And Mohammed's going to be right up on us. I do know he's not going to go for any wild moves, at least. He's just going to pass me respectfully. But I can just see here at this point the pace that he's going to have. The more that I try and stay ahead of him, I'm just going to risk spinning the car and completely losing all my marbles. So he gets a better launch coming down here into the right-hander. I just think, you know what, I'm just going to stay left, let him go past, and tuck in. You never know, maybe he might actually lose control of the car for a moment and we'll be able to slip past, but we do have to give in and slip down into 5th place here, unfortunately. So that was about it for the rest of this race. We're just going to follow Mohammed round. There wasn't a lot that happened, so I hope you've enjoyed sticking with me here through some of the trials and tribulations that I've had this week, and that some of you hopefully have had a bit more success on this track, although I'm sure it won't be an unfamiliar story to a lot of people as we nearly lose it on lap 7 here. Again, that would have been a moment where I think I honestly might have just quit the race, even though I'm in the end of lap 7. If I'd have spun it there, my patience was getting run so thin. I never one for quitting races, but I'd lost 15,000 DR doing this race this week, which is, you know, I'm not one to get too caught up over DR. It would be nice for it to be higher because you get to race with the better drivers, but to lose 15,000 DR in a week is just unbelievable. I mean, it's my own doing. It's because I've been quitting the races, but I do feel like maybe this race was just a little bit too slick, and one of the things I'm really hoping for in GT7 is that there's going to be some decent rain physics, because I just don't feel like these rain physics are right. It's just like driving on ice. There is no wet line that you seem to be able to get more grip from, so we're all looking forward to GT7, I'm sure, and that's going to be a big improvement that we all hope to see. Now, right at the end of the race there, unfortunately there's a big collision between the Italian and the Swiss driver, and I think for a moment it's going to be enough for me to gain a position, but not quite, although there Moray does actually let myself and the Swiss driver through, so I think he felt a little bit bad definitely for that contact on the last corner, and we managed to get back up into 4th place. So unfortunately that was the best race of my week, which is not saying much, but we managed to get one done, got one in the bag, and I'll take that, to be honest with you. So thanks very much if you've watched all of this video. It was a bit different for me doing a longer one, and really appreciate you hanging around. Stay tuned on Monday for the big announcement that's coming, and look forward to seeing you then for the track guide videos for next week's races. See you soon.